again, this is Steve Owen, and today we're going to talk about the music of Buddy Baker. Now, Buddy Baker, to me, was a genius. Why? Because he had such a wonderful sense of harmony. His harmonic sense was just out of this world. And he used chromaticism quite a bit, which to me is also kind of the height of music. So a little bit about Buddy. He was born in the first 20 years of the 20th century, rather, and born in Missouri. I believe it was Springfield. And they say that he learned to read and play the piano, read music and play the piano before he could even read anything from a book. So that's quite fascinating. He also, put this over here, he also attended Southwestern Baptist College, I believe is the name of it, and got his music degree there, and came to Hollywood in the 1930s. Started arranging for big bands. Bob Hope, the Bob Hope radio show. What else? He worked with Stan Kenton and produced one of Stan Kenton's first hit records called "And Her Tears Flowed Like Wine." One of his associates at the Disney studio also had much experience with the Stan Kenton Orchestra, Franklin Marks, who we'll talk about in a bit, because Franklin did a couple of great things, great themes for Disney as well, which we'll talk about those themes. But right now I want to talk about the fabulous sense of harmony of Buddy Baker. I first became aware of Buddy's music and not knowing who he was until many years later, but with the music in the mid-50s, as a little kid, we would hear the Mickey Mouse Club end title. And at the end of that end title, there was a chord which was fascinating to me. And basically he shifts from, in this piece at the end, from like a C major to like a major seventh. I believe it's a D flat major seventh, and then back to C. And so while retaining in the melody an oddball note, part of the melody, I think. Let's see if we can demonstrate it. Let's see. It shifts to C towards the last part of the theme. I think from A flat to C. Now right here. The oddball note is right here. It's flatted fifth in the chord of D flat major seventh. So that was really kind of wonderful. Another wonderful thing he did is he shifted from like trumpets that were chordal, they were doing chords, to an octave right there, and then we have the wonderful chord. Now that really wigged me out as a little kid. I had no idea, what music was in the sense of having any training, but my ears told me that there was something wonderful about this. And my ears, over the years, have taken me where I want to go, to different musical lands. And some of my influences are quite broad, but I do come back to Buddy Baker because he was such a wonderful man, not only as a person but musically speaking. Now, he did a theme based on the Sherman Brothers called "Wonderful World of Color," and they incorporated it into the first show of the Wonderful World of Color in 1961, called An Adventure in Color. And in this show, he utilizes some harmony, some counterpoint, which I think is wonderful. Let me see if I can demonstrate it to you. That's it. So now the woodwinds go like this. I think that's so wonderful. Let me play it again for you, a little bit louder. Then he utilizes this wonderful chord, which sounds like the outer limits. Yeah. So, becoming a young adult, I started asking around. I said, who is this guy in the 1960s that wrote all this great music for the Walt Disney Studios, for the TV shows, and for the Disneyland park? And when I called up the studio, I got the answer. Oh, that's Buddy Baker. Buddy Baker. He's still with us. Buddy Baker. Buddy Baker. Okay, well, there were several composers working at the studio at that time, but Buddy took over as the main man for TV and also the Disneyland theme park. And so we would hear his Sunday night show, Walt's Sunday night show, even after Walt had passed in the early 70s. These wonderful themes that would be very short themes that were not developed, but they nevertheless were wonderful, and the harmony was wonderful. And some of the titles of these themes are basically, they have no titles. They're just called like subject credits or director's credits with a number on them or whatever. And one of them was used for the 1972 through 76, I believe, season of the Wonderful World of Disney. And I think this is one of the director's credits. It goes like this. Yeah, and so the way he does the harmony on that is wonderful. So these would be violins. So his sense of harmony is really fabulous on that. I remember that quite well because it was just so fascinating. Let's see what else. Of course, we talked about in an earlier episode on YouTube about The Wonderful World of Color in title theme, which I dissected a little bit. I remember this. That really knocked me out. That was fantastic. All of this, I was digging on, but I didn't know who the guy was that was behind this. And then later on, even in like the late 70s, in 1978, Buddy did some more fantastic titles for The Wonderful World of Disney, openings and closings, and they were fantastic as well. We'll get into that in a bit. Some of the great composers that work in the background for films and television, some of them never get the accolades that they deserve. I do remember one of the composers I liked very much, named David Butolph, who worked for years doing westerns and different films. One of his great films was The House of Wax with Vincent Price. And these guys rarely ever had an album, a record album of any. I think Dave had maybe one or two albums. I believe it was two albums. I think it was the Long John Silver's Return to Treasure Island, which was a 10-inch LP, as well as a big LP. And what's the other one? The Horse Soldiers. The Horse Soldiers. So these guys really didn't have a lot of recordings, but if you go to the studios, you'll see the massive amount of material that they produced in form of sheet music. But he was the same way. He had a couple of records. One was the Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln, which can be found today on eBay. I see copies of it and people buying it. It's really a wonderful score. It's the background to the audio animatronics of Lincoln giving a speech in an auditorium, and the background score is there along with the narration, and that's quite a wonderful thing. And I think he did a recording as well for the Burt Bacharach Hal David score called Lost Horizon. They did a kiddie record on that, and Buddy did the arrangements, and I believe that that was out around the early 70s. Not too many records. He did get a nomination for an Academy Award, Napoleon and Samantha, and he would often take themes, he would often study the themes of Disney, like for example Alice in Wonderland, the harmony from that, incorporated into some of the titles for the TV show. For example, he does this one theme which is wonderful. It's like called a sponsor billboard. It goes like this. Doesn't go like that. And then he comes up with this harmony, which is part of Alice in Wonderland. Right there. Quite wonderful. I love it. And there was another cue he did for the closing of The Wonderful World of Disney, which he adapted from an earlier thing that I heard. I heard this on an early Disney show, entitled by George Bruns, where the violins kind of go like this. So he listened to that, he remembered that, and he incorporated it into like a cue, you know. Whatever it is. So that was really pretty great. But then again, we have this, once again, a root note and a strange chord against it. There it is. So I really enjoy all this stuff. He did a theme in 1959 for a film called, it was a short called Adventure, what was it called? Donald and Math Magic Land, which they did show along with Adventure in Color in 1961. It was the first show. But it was released originally as a theatrical film for schools, I believe, and taught mathematics, basic mathematics. And he has this theme called Donald and Math Magic Land, which kind of sounds like Bach. Something like that, and that really is wonderful, and so he uses that throughout this film.